Hello there. My name is Jeremy, and it's been a while since I've made a video. There are reasons for that. However, I'm excited to get into today's topic. I'm making this video because it's been 2 years now for me since I've been sober. And part of the reason why I haven't been creating that much content over the last 2 years is directly related to this experiment, you could call it, of sobriety and how it affects my life and my chronic headaches that I've been dealing with for many years and many other things. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose the path of sobriety and the story behind that. I'm going to discuss my definition of sober and what it means to me and exactly how that looks in my life. I'll discuss some of the challenges that I've faced and continue to face. And I'll also talk about the benefits and the results. And that is mostly the reason why I'm making this video, so I can talk about the positives and remind myself of the journey that I've been on. I also think it could be useful for other people who may share some similarities in my journey, and it may be a source of inspiration or perhaps provide some insight, or if you're watching this, maybe you just feel like, I'm not alone. Or maybe you just think I'm really weird and you're like, this guy's crazy, but I'm going to keep watching. Whatever it is, I hope it's useful for you. But I have my own selfish reasons why I'm creating this, and hopefully it can help us all just a little bit. And hopefully by the end I'll also talk about what next? Where do I see myself in relationship to substances and sobriety? And do I have a stance? Do I know what I'm going to even commit to moving forward or not? So that's what I hope to get to in this video, but I'm also going to stay open to whatever else wants to come through in this monologue. Sobriety. So the reason I went sober wasn't necessarily because I was violent or because my drinking habit was getting in the way of my work or blah, blah, blah. For me, it's easy to pinpoint the destruction that was taking place from substances because it pretty much had all to do with me. What I mean by that is I've been getting chronic headaches since about 2015. It started to be an everyday thing. And since then, I became aware that I had an addictive personality. But because I was pretty clever and maybe in denial, I was able to move around from different substances. So at first, earlier in my life, I took Adderall every day to get out of bed. And I never really liked the feeling of, perhaps not the feeling, I didn't like the habit, I didn't like the dependency that I was a part of. Often I would take a pill while I was still in bed, go back to sleep, and then that would wake me up. Something in that just didn't feel right for me, even at a young age. And then later I would continue to use caffeine in the mornings, and then often I would take marijuana to help me fall asleep. So the pattern of dependency has always been there for most of my adult life, you could say. And then addiction, and I'm not completely sure what the definitions of each of those words are, but I definitely started to crave these things and I have an addictive personality. I like getting high. I like feeling good. There's a freedom in that for me. My wife is quite different. She's more like, I want to stay grounded and be in control and be on the earth. I'm like, how high can we get? Let's It's burst through the ceiling. So that's kind of been a part of my personality, and that led into seeking and chasing. And so I was taking a lot of substances because I was getting headaches. And I never really found one that would work, to say. So I would bounce around. I would take a lot of THC, kratom. I would microdose on different plant medicines. I had tried some like conventional meds, but those also weren't really working. Taking a lot of Advil and painkillers. I was taking a bunch of codeine at a point in time. But I would always switch every week or two if I'm like, okay, I'm taking too much of this. Let me switch and do something else. But the overarching theme was I was in pain. I was not feeling comfortable, and I was seeking for relief from some sort of drug or medicine. About 2 years ago, I was at a very low point in my life. I wasn't very stable. I had a hard time doing everything. It was rough. It was really dark. I'm pretty sure I cried every day for like weeks at a time. And it's not like there was a sad thing happening outside of me. I would just panic or get sad and anxious and afraid, and different emotions would come. I didn't know how to meet them, and I would just start crying. I would burst into tears kind of mid-sentence, and some people would be like, oh, okay. So it was really tough time for me. I was getting help from a dear friend of mine and a teacher. His name is Chris. And he was giving me some energy work, which I found to be very useful. He was also very supportive in dialoguing, not necessarily a conventional therapy type of session, more on the spiritual side for sure, but it was very useful. And he gave me this big, long energy session. And during it, I could feel the shifts taking place. Like I felt a bit floaty, I felt like I had more space, and honestly, I felt happy, which was a rarity at this time. And at the end of the session, he said, this is going to take about 30 days for your system to integrate. And if you get high on anything, it's going to offset the work that I've done. So basically, he said, no getting high for a month. He gave me alternatives of things that I could do, but he was just saying, if you get high, your mind may do this and blah, 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 and then it's going to offset this big chunk of work that we did. So I trusted him. And somewhere in me, I knew this was coming. I had experimented with a lot of different substances, and I just saw that it wasn't the answer. Maybe my life was here, and then I would take some substance either for the day and be here, or if it was something from the psychedelic category, maybe I would be up here for a few days or even a week or even a month, but then I would come back crashing. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So this was July 2021, and I called it No High July, No Getting High July. He also recommended a friend of his who does similar healing work, but seems to be a bit different than his flavor, and he essentially referred me to her. And he's like, let this work land, and then I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Suzanne, and I think she can help you. So I was like, great. Had faith, had hope. I did No High July. It was hard, but it wasn't that hard. As much as I have an addictive personality, I'm also disciplined, and if I say I'm going to do something, no matter how rigorous or intense, I can mentally talk my way out of breaking a promise to myself, and I stay true to that. So sometimes to a fault, where it's just easier and safer, and it makes sense to go easy and soften my restrictions or restraint. But in this, it was hard, but I was able to do it. everything was hard at this time, to be honest. And I knew it wasn't really helping me. I just didn't have those escapes anymore. So then I start working with this new woman who I'm excited and very hopeful. and one of the first things I asked her, I was like, hey, so Chris said I couldn't get high for 30 days. Here's the substances I'm interested in taking. At the time I was taking codeine for pain relief. I was taking THC for pain relief, but also for just emotional discomfort and self-medicating. And I was also taking a good amount of ayahuasca at that time. And so I asked her, I was like, here's what I'm taking, here's the frequency. I wasn't taking any of those super often. Ayahuasca is like, looking back, it was a lot. But at the time, I didn't feel like it. Maybe once every month or once every 2 months. The THC, the codeine, kind of as needed, once or twice a week. But if I got a really bad headache, I would take a lot and I would need more of it. So I could take a lot of that within like a 48-hour period if I just couldn't bear the pain. And her response was, yeah, I think it's a good idea to stay off those substances. And I tried to talk some logic into why it would be good, but she basically was like, yeah, weed probably never, ever again is going to be useful to you. Ayahuasca, maybe if it's like some huge life decision that you need clarity on. If it's like, should I move to Australia and buy land or some, she made it seem like if it's a huge thing, perhaps, but not anytime soon. And then the other stuff, she was like, yeah, that's not good for you. So basically, without realizing it, I stopped all the substances that I was taking. I guess I realized it, but it wasn't a conscious decision like, I'm gonna go sober. It was just, I'm gonna do a sober July, basically, no high July. And in that month, I was taking some caffeine and cacao, I believe. So those were my replacement substances, if you will. Having some sugar, having some caffeine, cacao, some sort of stimulant. Though, shortly after working with Suzanne, or maybe even one of our first sessions, she also took away the other things in my life that were getting me high. Sorry, she didn't take it away. She recommended that they weren't really good for me. And I completely agree with her. At the time, it did feel like she was taking away all my coping strategies. It was tough, but I'm so glad I did it. So those strategies or methods were breath work. I was using breath work a lot to get high on my own supply, as Wim Hof says. I was also doing heavy exercise, trying to get those endorphins, and I stopped that. And then eventually I also stopped caffeine. I think I was already off caffeine for the most part, but then I stopped cacao. And I think that's it. Advil as well. Maybe I took Advil for like 1 month or so, but after a while, for the majority of these 2 years of sobriety, it's been substance-free. Basically, I don't ingest any chemicals that alter my mind so much. All the good stuff, all the fun ones. So that's been tough. So that's how I got here. Now, I wanted to put something out about a year ago. It felt like I was super confused because I knew that in my mind I was like, I'm doing a good thing. This is really hard. It's been 1 year. I've been sober 1 year. I should celebrate. This should be a moment of satisfaction and achievement. And it was nothing like that. I was struggling. I was drowning. My face was deep in the dirt. And when I brought this to talk to Suzanne in a type of therapy session, she pointed out to me the part of me that is still looking to get high was hoping I would get high from being sober. But the truth is, sober is sober. It's not chasing another experience. It's just being present. And it's hard. And what this whole journey has forced me to do and allowed me to do is just be with what is, without trying to make it different, without running away, without saying that it's wrong, without judging myself or my emotions or what's taking place right now. And that's difficult. That's been really difficult. But the more I'm able to settle in and do that, the more I see that I can meet this moment, and the more trust and faith I have in myself and the practices and the path that I'm on. And then the less I panic, the better I end up feeling, because I'm meeting things with presence and kindness and compassion. And then for me, after about maybe a year and a few months, I started to be like, wow, I'm actually feeling better. A year ago, I was like, I'm sober. If anyone's thinking about it, wouldn't recommend it. But I did it. Here I am, still standing, barely. I couldn't write anything or put anything out publicly. That I was really struggling. Now, as you can see, I feel at least well enough to make this video. So, next, I'll talk a little bit about the challenges, because it has been hard. It has been really difficult, especially because a lot of people, when they talk about sober, it's usually, I assume it's just like one substance, or it's alcohol, or whatever they had a thing with. For me, I've just noticed that none of these substances are useful for me. So one of the challenges for me is I don't have something else to fall back on. Quick story, when I was 19, I got in trouble at my university for selling weed. I can talk about it now because it's legal. And part of my punishment was I had to go to counseling for my addiction. And the closest thing that they could find to marijuana counseling, because it wasn't Alcoholics Anonymous, there's plenty of those available, but because it wasn't alcohol, the closest thing that they could find for me was Narcotics Anonymous. So I'm 19 years old. I don't even smoke weed. I was just selling it. And I found myself at Narcotics Anonymous, a meeting every week for several months. And I just remember thinking how much coffee everyone was drinking. Like, that was one of the first things I noticed. We met in the evenings, and everyone was just guzzling coffee. And at the time, I was barely a coffee drinker either. So I remember finding that a little strange. I wasn't judging them. I was just like, well, if I drank coffee that late, no way I could go to sleep. Why do I bring that up? Now it makes sense to me why they were drinking coffee. And sometimes I wish I had my version of coffee, something that's not as strong as marijuana or mushrooms or ayahuasca, peyote, San Pedro, all these other things I was taking. But just something to give me a little buzz. And I guess I do that with sometimes I'll take an ice bath. Maybe I'll eat I make homemade ice cream. I love that. A little bit of sugar, natural sugar, maple syrup, sometimes honey, organic stuff, but no white sugar. Can't do that. To me, that's a drug. But a big challenge for me has been this all or nothing scale. And it works for me. Coffee doesn't help. Caffeine doesn't help. Kombucha. I've had kombucha by accident. I'm like, wow, whew, crazy. So that's been a struggle for me. And I think what it really comes down to is feeling lonely in this journey. And feeling like I haven't had a support group or Alcoholics Anonymous place to show up and feel like, you're like me, you're like me. I would say that's been the biggest challenge of this aspect. Because I wouldn't have said I have a problem with substances if you had asked me a few years back. If I had shown up to an AA meeting, I would have said, I don't have an addiction. I would have said, I have chronic headaches. I don't have a problem with substances. I have a problem with myself, and I have a problem with life. And substances make it more tolerable. Of course, there's many ways to interpret that. But it has been challenging. Socially, it's been really tough. In the area that I live in, there aren't that many people who are on a similar path, who are as sensitive as myself, who are interested in meeting this moment without a chemical filter. So that's been a big challenge. One time I was talking to my neighbor. I live in Vietnam, by the way, central Vietnam, Hoi An. I was talking to my neighbor, and he asked me, do you drink coffee? I was like, no, I don't drink coffee. He's like, okay. And he handed me a cigarette. But you smoke cigarettes? I was like, no, I don't smoke cigarettes. I actually hate cigarettes. They trigger headaches. And he's like, okay, but you drink beer? And I was like, no, I don't drink beer. And he's like, then which one? What do you do? Like, it was unheard of for him to not include any of those. And that's why I felt a bit isolated. Usually, most people have at least one that they're like, all right, I don't drink, but I smoke. I don't smoke, but I drink, blah, 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 blah. So that's been really tough. And it's been really isolating because most social engagements revolve around at least one substance. Cafes is caffeine, coffee, and then at nighttime, alcohol. Here, alcohol typically goes with cigarettes. So it's really tough. So that's been the biggest challenge. It's also just really hard to be around people that smoke cigarettes for me. But I wouldn't consider that a sobriety challenge. It's not like I feel a craving to join them. I just don't like that environment. It doesn't feel good for me. It's harder to support myself in those types of environments. At this point, I don't really miss anything. Occasionally I'll hear about someone talk about like a psychedelic journey, and I'll kind of be like, oh yeah, those are fun, the colors, the this, the that. But I find that the better I feel, the less I think about these substances at all. And recently I've noticed that when I do crave these substances, it only takes place at a moment where I'm not able to meet the moment as it is. It's not like I'm just sitting there and all of a sudden I feel this call like, I want to try this thing, and like this feels open. It feels like an inspiration. No, it's like I'm struggling and I want to get out of this pain and discomfort, and then the idea of a substance comes as the solution to solving this so-called problem. Yeah. All right. Next, I'm going to talk about the results, the benefits. And remember, I told you, this is my favorite part. I feel like up until now, I'm kind of just regurgitating things that have been in my brain. Here's where I really get to be scientific and observe the results and remind myself of the benefits. Because often I can get very narrow-minded, especially when I have a really strong headache or I am encompassed by fear. It's very narrowing, and I tend to forget the big picture because I get swallowed by the intensity of this moment. And in that, it's hard to maintain perspective. So, by talking to myself, by myself, hopefully people will watch this later, it's a way for me to record this and remember the benefits. Anyways, that was a long enough segue. Let's get into it. So the first thing is my sleep. It's undeniable that I sleep less now. And I don't think this is just about feeling rested and being tired. I think I have pretty good sleep hygiene. I have some improvements to go in the sense that I take a nap every single day. And while I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, I don't know if naps are necessary. I don't know if that's actually how humans evolved to need naps. I'd like to get to the point where I don't need it every day. Rather, I can take it when I'm really overstretched. At this point, if I miss my afternoon nap, it's hard to be productive and I get really, really grumpy. I'm like how people are without their morning coffee if I don't have my nap most of the time. But I'm sleeping way less. I used to nap sometimes for hours at end. It wasn't just a nap. I was collapsing. There was a form of escapism included. I was just so overwhelmed. I couldn't even look to see what was going on. It was just like, get me out of here. This is too much. My head hurts. I'm scared. There's a smorgasbord of emotions inside of me, and they're all loud, and one is reacting to the other, and I couldn't explain this to you then. Then I'm just like, I'm tired. I can't have another conversation. I need darkness and sleep. And sometimes I would sleep for hours on end, just randomly. I would get a strong headache after lunch, and I would go to bed at 2, and I would wake up at 6. So as you can imagine, it was really hard to maintain a work life. And so now I'm sleeping way less. I used to also sleep in a lot. I would basically sleep in until about an hour and a half, 2 hours before my first commitment. So if my first commitment of the day was at 12, then I would sleep till 10 or 10:30. Sometimes I would still sleep till 11 or 12, 1, 2. I was sleeping a lot. Now, I still sleep a lot, but way less. Now I wake up, if I sleep in now, 9 a.m. is like, wow, I really slept in. But usually even 7:30, 8 during the week is sleeping in. When I'm feeling good, which is rare, but way more common than 2 years ago, I wake up at like 6:30, and I can like get up and brush my teeth and do my thing, and I'm not a zombie. So that is one area that I've seen massive results. And as I mentioned briefly, the work thing, that is another benchmark that I can easily point to. I now have enough stability that I can show up and work a little bit every day. Even if it's just 30 minutes or an hour, just to do the bare minimum to move some projects forward and meet the deadline. I can do that now. 2 years ago, I was unpredictable. I had no idea when I could work, when I couldn't. And when I did work, I usually had to wait until like late in the day. Usually at nighttime, my headaches are lessened for whatever reason. So I wouldn't work till like 9 p.m., 10, 11. Everybody goes to sleep, and then I have energy and clarity, and that's when I would do my work. And it just felt like, even if I had the smallest task, it felt like a mountain inside of me that I had to climb. It was just so hard. Now I just sit down, I show up, I see, okay, what can I do? And I'm able to do a good amount of work. On days I feel good, I can work 4 or 5 hours. And some of this is like really creative work that involves a sharp intellect, and I really got to focus. And so, but I still have a ways to go. Sleep and work. Other benefits. My headaches. Surprised that came third. This is a tough one because I have a headache right now. I would say at this point I have a headache 70 to 85% of my waking hours. It is not the most adorable thing to experience, but objectively, the frequency is less. And more importantly, the intensity is way less. Maybe once or twice a week, the headache will be so intense that I'll have to kind of block out the world and close my eyes, go in a dark space, put in earplugs, block out all sensory input, and rest. But when I do that, usually I can come out of it. In the past, if I went into that, it was just like a cave that would last hours and sometimes days. So yeah, definitely on the up and up. Anything else? I feel way more grounded, which is also hard. I would associate that term grounded. To me, grounded and sober are like neighbors. They talk to each other. To be grounded, being sober helps being grounded. And so I feel far more aware of the inner happenings in my life. I actually had a conversation this morning with Suzanne, the same woman, who was like, yeah, you're probably never going to want to take weed again. It won't help you. I was like, what? She was pointing out to me that I've developed a skill to remain aware and have a sense of kind of what's going on inside of me emotionally and mentally when things are really uncomfortable. And I'm able to maintain a level of awareness where I can also connect one day with a previous day, a week prior, and draw conclusions based on different patterns that I see. I would definitely attribute that skill building, my ability to build that skill, to being sober. I'm basically just more present. And because I'm more present, I see what's there. It's not always fun. A lot of the time, it's really uncomfortable to look at what's there. Especially when it's painful, literally. I have a headache. Oh, I have a headache. What else? But I definitely feel more grounded. I feel more trust as well in myself. Even if there's one moment that's really uncomfortable, it doesn't ruin my whole world. It's just, things are uncomfortable right now. So I've cultivated an ability to accept and say, you know, this isn't the most comfortable moment. It's pretty painful. My head hurts. But what's available? Can I still go on a walk? Can I go to the beach? Can I play some music? Or previously, I wasn't able to do that. If my head hurt, that's what I was fixated on. I would fight with it. It'd be annoying, and then it would just spiral to more emotional discomfort. More benefits. I think I'm more in touch with my truth, and I feel more in alignment as well with life. What I mean by that is using substance for me was kind of a way to chase certain ideas and ride those ideas for egoic satisfaction. For example, I would do a ceremony, as I would call them, and I would get all these amazing ideas and insights, and creativity would flow through me. But in order to make that happen, it felt like I was climbing uphill. I had to really push. I had to stay high in a way, because those weren't grounded ideas. And looking back, a few things could have been taking place. But I think that, one, those ideas may not even been for me, in the sense that it wasn't meant for me to receive, but because I was on these substances and open to inspiration, I was able to grasp them. And I don't think it was the right timing either. I was acting from a place of lack and impatience and pushing to make these things happen. Where now, I'm moving much slower, and with that is an ease of what happens. I'm not necessarily trying to force things to prove that I am capable or worthy. Rather, I'm just kind of sitting and able to rest and hang out and let let life guide me. There's a quote that I love, goes something along the lines of, a wave cannot stand by itself. A wave is supported by the entire ocean. A wave is supported by the entire ocean. And I look at the things I used to do previously in my life, I would say the last 2 years, but really the last 32 years. And it was often a wave, an individual self trying to make things happen, trying to do it. I want to make the money, I want to do the thing, I want to start the business, I want to write this song, I want to post this video, I want the attention, I want the satisfaction, etc. And now I feel like I'm much more in tune with what life is supporting me with. What feels like I have support from my external environment, little things where it just feels like, this is the right time. It's not like me forcing it and trying to happen for an egoic satisfaction. It's more like, this makes sense. Internally, it feels nice. You know, the wave is like, I'm ready, but it also feels like I have this support from life in the sense that there's not as much friction, there's not as much pain, there's a lot more ease. People are requesting things from me. They're like, I want you to do this thing. And I'm like, okay, I guess so. So that's what I mean by alignment, or maybe harmony, or attunement, or something. And so that feels nice. Or before it felt like I was this wave coming, and then I would just like evaporate, and I'd be like, what's going on? This is crazy, and it'd be really scary. So yeah, I'm sure I could think of other benefits, but the majority of the big ones I think I've already spoken to. I think I'm just doing less to dovetail off of that last one. Because of that, I'm more selective with my creative pursuits, and I don't struggle as much. And I have way less attachment to what I accomplish. I'm not judging myself if I don't write enough songs, or make enough money, or make enough progress on a project. I just have a deeper level of trust and acceptance with the timing of everything. Because it still gets really frustrating, don't get me wrong. I still feel like I have the symptoms of like an 80-year-old sometimes, or even older, and I'm in a 32-year-old body, and I have this ambition and passion and creativity, and I have to spend hours upon end, resting in my house and moving very slowly and taking care of myself. But I do feel like I'm on the right path. I really do. I don't think I could have ever said that in the last 7 years of my healing journey. And because of that, I don't feel as desperate. I was so desperate for so long. Everyone I would meet, there's just a part of me looking for like, maybe they have an answer for me. Maybe they can help me. Maybe they know the way out. It was just internal seeking of like, I'm not okay and I need help. I need saving. And that identification is definitely dissolving, and it doesn't run the show anymore. So overall, it's good. It's still hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a walk in the park. But it's good. It's a good challenge. It feels true for me. So I think I'll wrap it up there. I have written down, now what? That was my conclusion. But I guess I'm not so sure. I don't plan on taking substances anytime soon. The only thought that creeps into my head sometimes is like, it'd be nice to just take mushrooms again. Like just sometime, just to have fun. But the longer I stay sober and the better I feel, the less those urges come, and then the less power they have over me as well. And maybe those two are related. The other curiosity I get is, I want to try these things to see if they don't give me a headache. And I don't know if I'll ever do that. Maybe in like 20 years. I had one teacher once say, like, at some point you'll be headache free and you'll try and you'll say, let me drink this and smoke this, and I didn't get a headache. So I still have that planted in my mind somewhere. But I don't miss it. I don't miss alcohol or coffee or anything. If anything, I miss the feeling of being high that those substances give me, but there's not that much of a temptation at this point. I just want to feel okay. And I'm very well aware that those substances don't really help me feel more okay. So this is me. Thank you for watching. I also want to give a big thanks to all those who have supported me, especially my wife June, and the professionals that have supported me on this journey as well. It's always nice to have people cheering you on and reminding you that you're doing a good job from time to time. So I wanted to give thanks to them, and thank you for watching. If there's anything I can do to help, I would love to support. I'm not trained in supporting someone in this, but I can be a friend and a peer cheering you on or answer any questions. I know part of AA, a lot of that is about giving back and sharing your story and helping others and having a sponsor, being a sponsor, etc. I'm not so familiar with that, but I would love to help. So reach out, I'm available. Otherwise, stay tuned. Maybe I'll make another video after 3 years, or maybe I'll wait till 5 years. We'll see. All right, thank you so much for watching. This is Sober Jeremy signing off. Much love, and I hope you have an incredible day.